All right, everybody, welcome back to the Horn Takes podcast, your very rough around the edges Texas sports talk destination. I'm your host, Sean Redfern. It is Friday Eve. I'm excited about that. We got some beautiful weather right now in my neck of the woods. It's supposed to be real cold tomorrow, real cold on Saturday. Windy. That's what it does here. It is what it is. It's almost the weekend, though, so we're not going to complain. We got to talk about some Hardwood Horns today. Got to talk about some Texas baseball today. Big weekend last weekend. Big midweek game this week against Texas A&M. Big series coming up against Texas Tech right here in Lubbock, Texas today. Actually, tomorrow, rather. And then we'll talk about speed kill. Speed kills, y'all. The best high school football teams have lots of speed. The best college football teams have lots of speed. Best NFL teams, they have lots of speed. Speed kills. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. If you just like to listen to podcasts, you can do that too. We're at horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com, or you can find us on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on iHeart. Horn Takes Podcast. Check us out. Hardwood Horns, man, we said they needed 3 or 4 to finish the season. I thought they were done and wouldn't get it done. Man, I was wrong. And I will just say this. They haven't done 3 or 4 yet. They're 2 of 3. They still got to play the 4th game this Saturday against Oklahoma, and I don't want to call that a gimme. I'm not going to do that. What I said they wouldn't do was win any road games. I didn't think this team would be able to win a road game. I was wrong, man. They had their first 2-game winning streak since January before they headed into Baylor. They went into Lubbock, just absolutely run Tech out of the gym, 81-69. I think everybody that pays attention to sports at all saw the madness that went on with that deal. Cunningham being Cunningham, making Cunningham type plays, and I'm not picking a side. Not saying it's right, not saying it's dirty. I will say he plays hard, and a lot of times when he's playing hard, he gets into people and they don't like it. I get it. But really hard foul. He gets ejected from the game, runs off the court, throws the hook 'em. The fans lose their minds, start throwing shit out on the court. One guy gets carried out by like 5 police officers and gets a really nice fuck UT chant going as they're carrying him out of, I don't think it's called the United Spirit Arena anymore. Anyway, whatever that arena is called where they play basketball now over on campus. This guy gets hauled out, but he gets a really good fuck UT chant going. Nonetheless, Texas just absolutely blows the doors. Returns the favor, really. Earlier this season, Tech came down to Austin and put a double-digit ass kicking on Texas. So they return the favor there. They go back home. They bust Okie Light up, 81-65. And then they lost a really, really tough one on the road at Baylor. I did not get to see much of the Tech game, and I didn't get to see any of the Oklahoma State game. I watched quite a bit of the Baylor game. I can't remember. I think I turned it on with about, 10, 12 minutes left in the first half. Texas was up big. I was around 10, 12, something like that. At one point, they had built the lead to 14. And then, man, there was a stretch in the second half, and I don't know exactly how long it was. You guys saw it. They kind of did that thing they do where they go way too long without being able to score a basket. And against a really good team like Baylor, that's just not going to work. Like, you build a big lead like that, you got to be able to maintain that lead. And the only way you're going to maintain that lead is either playing really, really good defense, which this Texas team is not known to do, or you're going to have to keep scoring. And they just went ice cold in the second half. Baylor ends up pulling that one out 93-85. Really huge run for Baylor right there. I think Lunardi says if Texas would have won that game, they'd be a 7 seed this week in bracketology. Instead, they're an 8 seed. They got a home game this Saturday, 1 p.m. against Oklahoma. That one's going to be on ESPN or the Longhorn Radio Network. I assume Craig Way's going to call that. Generally, during basketball/baseball season, he calls the basketball games and somebody else calls the baseball games, which I think is backwards, but it is what it is. So Craig Way will probably be on the call Saturday. I don't know if that means he'll be on the call Friday night for the baseball game and Sunday for the baseball game. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. State of this program, they're just inconsistent. I don't think there's anything else you can say about it. Sometimes they play really, really good, and sometimes in the same game, sometimes in the same half. They just don't look good. Dessou might be injured. He went down in the Baylor game, favoring his left knee. I did not see anything during the play that made me think his knee should be hurt. And sometimes that is the worst kind of play because, the knee just gets hurt and there's really nothing visible that makes you think, man, he should be hurt. Sometimes those turn out the worst, but we're hoping the best for Dylan Dessou. I haven't heard anything. I haven't read anything. I don't know. He sure looked like he was in a lot of pain. He did not put any weight on that thing. Headed off the court. I don't know. We'll see. Without Dylan Dessou, I don't know. Even with Dylan Dessou, I don't know how big of a run this team could make. This is such a weird team. It's the type of team that could end up in the Sweet 16. Because there's some talent there. I mean, they're not crazily talented. But I just feel like there's enough talent on the team they could wind up there. It's not very likely, but it's a possibility. What's more than likely is they'll maybe scrape by a first-round game and get busted out in the second round. But who knows? We'll just have to see. Like I said earlier, they're an 8 seed. According to Lunardi, he's the expert. I'm not. I'm not sure there's anything they can do to improve upon that. I don't think beating Oklahoma is going to do it. Maybe if they go win the Big 12 tournament, which you talk about long shots, that might be the longest of long shots right there. I just don't see any way they could do something like that. But I'm not an expert. Again, I don't know if that's all they can do to get a higher seed. And again, folks, I was totally wrong, man. I had given up on this basketball team. I said multiple times, probably the last couple weeks, I just don't think they're going to be able to do enough down the stretch to get into the tournament. They just keep finding ways to do things down the stretch to get into the tournament. I think they're in, and we'll just have to see how good they can be in the tournament. It happens all the time. It happens every single year. Somebody gets hot. Somebody makes a run. They don't always win the whole thing, but there's always a team that nobody expects to make a deep run that makes a deep run. It might as well be Texas. And there's been a whole lot of talk, about Rodney Terry. Does CDC need to go start looking for another coach? It makes a deep run. I don't think you can. Man, I don't think you can this year, period. You got to give the guy more than 1 year. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with Texas basketball. Texas baseball, we said last week, coming into actually at the beginning of last week's show, we talked about, their positioning was real good. They were looking good, man. I think they were 7-1. Yeah, they were 7-1. Only loss was a close loss in extra innings. A game they should have won. They had it won, and they just kind of pissed it away. And it was kind of foreshadowing, I guess. They had the game won, and then their bullpen gave it up, which is a thing that happened a lot over the last weekend. But I said we'll know a lot more about this team over this stretch at the Houston Astros Classic down in Minute Maid. We'll We'll learn a lot more after a midweek against Texas A&M, and then headed into this weekend, they've got a series, Big 12 opening series with Texas Tech up in Lubbock, here in Lubbock. Tech is ranked 18th, maybe 5th, somewhere in the mid-teens, mid to upper teens. So a good ball club. We also said that we weren't going to measure this by wins and losses because I don't think this early in the season necessarily wins and losses are all that important. I mean, obviously you want to win the games. But I think early in the season, being competitive in games is very, very important. You can lose them, especially if you're playing a good team. It's okay to lose those games. And I'm talking like from a, what can this team be? What can this team do perspective. I'm not talking about, like, someone's going to say, oh, what a pussy attitude, or, oh, something stupid. I'm just saying, just because you lose doesn't mean you didn't play well. And you can play well. And if Texas could have played well in these losses, I think you look at it and you go, okay, that's no big deal. So we were measuring success on being competitive. So let's talk about that. The Houston Astros Classic, they go 0-3. They start the weekend off against number 3 LSU. Good ball club, defending national champions. And Luke Holman is obviously one of the best pitchers in college baseball this year, and he just absolutely made Texas hitters look ridiculous. They suffered a 6-3 loss to those guys. I didn't think it was a bad loss, though. I mean, they battled back. They got some runs late. They finally got past Holman, got to the bullpen, and they were able to do a little bit of damage offensively. Defensively, they were pretty good. I mean, LBJ was all right on the mound. He just wasted a lot of pitches, and I think LSU was really, really patient really early in that game. And they took a lot of really close pitches. Maybe a different umpire. A lot of those guys are sitting down. Maybe. I mean, I'm not saying the umpire did a bad job. I'm just saying these guys all have different strike zones. And so maybe if they're up against a different guy, a lot of those guys that are taking those close pitches are headed back to the dugout. But what ended up happening is LBJ just threw an enormous amount of pitches through 3 innings, and that was it for him. And so, again, I think a 6-3 loss against a really good LSU team, no big deal. So, I even after that loss, at this point, after the loss, I'm thinking, okay, they're competitive. That was a competitive game. That was a game that you're one swing away, and the pitching wasn't bad. The offense was not very good, but again, early season, really good pitcher. I think those things are to be expected. So then we head into Saturday against Texas State. And holy shit, what a game. I mean, first of all, if you're just a baseball fan, you don't care about either team, both of those games would have been really exciting to watch just from a baseball fan perspective. But from a Texas fan perspective, they were fucking terrible. They got down 6-0 early on against Texas State. Charlie Hurley can't manage more than 2 1/3. He gives up a freaking home run in the first inning, gives up a grand slam in the second or third inning. I mean, it was just a fucking disaster for Charlie Hurley. And then it goes back and forth, and finally, on the back of a 4-run 7th inning, Texas finally takes the lead 9-8. And so, we were listening to it. We were headed back from the DFW Plex. We had a baseball tournament in the DFW Plex. So we're headed back, listening to the radio, and it just kind of felt like, they've got it now. They had a rough start, but here comes the offense, and we're good. And some of the guys in the bullpen that came in did okay. They stopped the bleeding, right? They stopped the just complete ass kicking Texas was taking in the first couple innings of that game. They got 6 outs they need to get to win the game. And they give up one in the 8th. And then they get one in the eighth. So after the eighth inning, they take a 10-9 lead into the ninth inning, 3 outs. All they got to get is 3 fucking outs. And David Shaw comes in and gives up a 2-out, 2-run home run in the top of the ninth. Gets 2 outs quick, strikes a guy out, gets a pop fly. I think he gives up a single. And then I think it was the first pitch of the at-bat. And I don't even remember the kid's name from Texas State, but he just absolutely tattooed the baseball. By this point, we're at home. I got home just in time to turn it on and watch this unfold. Texas gets blanked in the bottom half of the ninth. They lose the game. Super winnable game, 11-10. They scored 10 runs in a baseball game and lost. You just can't do that very much and expect to have a good season. Then the Vandy game on Sunday was even worse. Texas comes out in this game against Vandy and just jumps all over Vanderbilt. 11-3 after 4 innings. And that's the last time they scored, which would be fine. You're up 11-3, you're up 8 runs. Let's get some outs. Let's throw some strikes. Let's keep the ball down. Let's keep it in the park. 11-3. Here's what they give up. 2 in the 5th, 2 in the 6th, 5 in the 7th, and 2 in the 8th. Lose the game 14-11. A game they were up 8 runs in, they lose 14-11. Do not score another run after the 4th inning. So 2 very, very winnable games right there, and one of them against a really good club in Vanderbilt. And I think Texas State will be a tournament team. So 2 teams that will be in the tournament that they should have beat on Saturday and Sunday, and they just pissed them away. Because nobody can come in and keep the ball in the park and throw strikes. And then Texas A&M comes to town on Tuesday night. Big crowd, lots of buzz. Last time Texas and Texas A&M squared off was in the College World Series a couple years ago, I believe. Maybe wrong on that. I know Texas A&M put Texas out of the College World Series that year. And they beat them pretty bad. I don't remember what the final score was, but it wasn't very competitive. It was one of those Texas gets to the College World Series and is really not competitive and goes 2 and done. 2 and barbecue, as they say. But Texas just absolutely shits the bed against A&M. They lose the game 9-2. They were really never in the game. And again, our metric here is like, let's just be competitive. It's okay to lose, but like be competitive. And they just were not competitive. And man, offensively, Saturday and Sunday in that tournament, they were, or round robin, whatever the hell you want to call it, classic. Let's call it a classic. They were competitive offensively, but the defense was just, and not even the defense, just, well, kind of the defense, but definitely the pitching. Just horrid. Just absolute trash. State of the program for baseball right now, this second. I think the pitching, I think it's safe to say it's worse this year than it was last year out of the bullpen. Last year, we said all season long, the Achilles heel of this team last year was the bullpen. They just could not find guys that could come in and consistently throw strikes without just serving up batting practice. Like, and that's what it looks like again this year, except it is worse. They got one true starter, and that's LeBaron Johnson Jr., and he's had some really good starts this year, and he's had some starts that I bet he wish he could get back. Just from a pitch count, he just didn't go deep very well a couple times this year. Charlie Hurley has gone 2.2 innings, and this is a starter, giving up 6 hits, 6 earned runs, 2 walks, and only 2 Ks in his last 2 appearances. Now, granted, one of these 2 appearances was in the Tuesday night game. He did so badly in his start against Texas State on Saturday that they thought they could pitch him during the midweek just to get him some reps. Guy's got a 5.11 ERA on the season. Yeah, that's just not going to get it done. Tanner Witt still hasn't recovered from Tommy John surgery 2 years ago. Started the season as a Sunday starter. This is his stat line for the season. 8.1 innings pitched. 4 hits, 3 earned runs, 6 walks, and 5 Ks. Your opening weekend Sunday starter, who granted has not been the starter since that, has only pitched 8.1 innings all season. I think his start against Aggie Tuesday night was like his best start of the season. He had 1 walk, 3 Ks, and 3 1/3. Did give up a 2-run shot. But I thought his command was a lot better. I thought before he was walking people. Now he's like, and hitting people. Now he's making pitches. I'll never get pissed at a guy for challenging somebody and getting hit out of the park. I'll wonder why you can't just get the balls by somebody. I'll wonder that, but I won't be mad at you. What really pisses me off is when these guys just will not throw strikes. Like they just, I don't know what's going on in their head. I don't know why you want to pitch around guys. You're never going to get outs if you try to pitch around everybody. Think about this. So in this Tuesday night game, this is how bad the pitching is for Texas. In this Tuesday night game against Texas A&M, 2 guys that were opening weekend starters for this Texas Longhorn team combined for 4 1/3 innings. 6 hits, 4 earned runs, 2 walks, and 4 Ks. Combined from 2 guys that started the weekend, the opening weekend for Texas. If you cannot get more innings out of your starters, it almost doesn't matter what you have in the bullpen. They can't all pitch. You would need a bullpen just full of guys that are really good. And I'm talking like elite type guys. If you can't get any more innings than Texas is getting out of their starters, the average start for Texas starting pitching right now, 3.5 innings. That's the average start. And that one, to me, is highly skewed by a really, really good 8-inning LBJ start against, I don't even know what team, one of those scrub teams they played earlier in the season. Almost everybody else has done nothing, like 5 innings. I think the most any starter for Texas has gone outside of that 8 innings that LBJ had was 5 innings. So the starting pitching is just not getting it done. They're not able to get deep into the game. And then the bullpen is an absolute nightmare right now. You look at guys like Max Grubbs, Luke Harrison, David Shaw, Heston Toll. These are all guys that have been around. They've played baseball for a while. They played baseball at Arkansas. They played baseball at Rice. Like these guys are seasoned veterans. They should know how to pitch. And those 4 guys have a combined ERA right now of 5.8. And those are your dudes, man. Those are the guys that you're counting on to come out of the bullpen and, just get some outs. This team averages almost 6 free passes per game. They've got 17 hit batsmen through 12 games. So overall, it's just no command. They just can't get the ball across where they want to get the ball across. And then they're forced to just chunk one in there. And man, with these bats and this ball, and the love fest that, baseball has sort of fallen into with home runs. I mean, Texas brought their field in. It's still a big park, but they brought their field in because it used to be just you just weren't hitting it out of there unless you absolutely mashed a baseball. Point being, you cannot just group. I mean, the fields are so small now, and these bats are so hot, and this ball is so hot, you can't just throw it in there because even a miss can go out of the park. So pitching-wise, the arms are just not anywhere near elite. I mean, none of them. Outside of LBJ. Right now. I think offensively, Pierce is still trying to figure out, what this lineup looks like. We talked last week in the show. As a matter of fact, the name of the show last week was Dangerous Lineup. And what we were getting at there was a lot of guys are hitting at the top of the lineup. Porter Brown was struggling. Jack O'Dowd struggling. Those guys kind of went off on Saturday and Sunday in Houston. 5 home runs in between them. So it was good to see those. And against Texas State, they were big hits. I mean, they were big home runs. So it's good to see them kind of show up big. Despite the fact that they're struggling. And then the pitching can't hold serve. I mean, these dudes lost 2 games where they averaged 2.5 runs per game over the weekend. And then in a game like, the LSU game where the pitching is actually, okay. It's not bad. They just can't hit. They struck out 20 times in that game. 20 times. You got to get 27 outs to win a baseball game. LSU got 27 outs. 20 of them were by strikeout. You cannot do that and expect to win. You have to be able to get the ball in play and put some pressure on some people. Texas riding a 4-game losing streak. And, folks, I think there's a really good shot that it turns into 7 after this weekend. I mean, Tech is good offensively. Talk about small baseball fields. We talk about this all the time. Our son plays baseball here in Lubbock. So we go to all these fields here in Lubbock, the high school fields. Every single one of them is bigger than Rip Griffin Park, where Texas Tech gets to smack the ball around. So to me, it's hard to imagine this team, winding up in a super regional at this point, let alone Omaha. I mean, I know coming in, we were really excited. And we're not giving up on them. We're just talking. I'm going to keep watching the baseball games. I mean, we're going to keep watching. We're going to keep hoping that they get better. Pierce teams usually do. We've seen this before. We've seen Pierce teams kind of have a lackluster start. And then somewhere along the line, usually in postseason, they just kind of get it figured out. I think if you look at this program in terms of whether it's ready to move into the SEC next year and compete, I do not think so. I think the facilities are kind of lagging. There are plans. They got plans to do some renovations. They've already done some stuff. Got the Yeti Yard. I think that's a cool idea. Got Occupy Left Field, which is a total fan-driven thing. But it's facilities and stuff that, they just haven't put a lot of money into in a long time. And I know football's king. I get that. Believe me, I love football, and I love the fact that the athletic program here at Texas, they want to invest in the football program. But I don't think you cannot leave baseball. You can't leave them behind. There's no reason why Texas shouldn't go into the SEC with some of the best facilities, the best coaches, the best everything, best NIL. And there's a huge debate on baseball. I saw a deal last year, and I don't know where it came from, but it said that like out of all the teams on campus for Texas sports, baseball was like 9th. And there were several women's teams that had a better NIL pool than the men's baseball team, which is just fucking absurd to me, considering just how much of a blue blood Texas is in baseball. But there's a debate. There's some people that will say, well, show me the proof. I get it. Some people think it's just the coaching. Some people think that the players are just fine, and maybe they are. But one thing that is interesting, Texas isn't getting any big-time names out of the portal. And you go back and you look at, the last couple years for LSU especially, and I'm not just picking on LSU. There's other teams that have done the same thing. They've brought in really, really good players out of the portal. The elite guys, Paul Skeens, Tommy Tanks. Won a national championship with it. I think baseball is a little bit different than football in the way that you can really turn around your program with portal additions. Texas brings guys in from the portal. They brought in some arms. None of them are elite arms. And David Pierce knew that. He's bringing in what he can bring in. So either it's something to do with him or the program itself, or they just don't have the money to pass around like some of these other schools do. And that should not be a problem for the University of Texas. I think this program's at a crossroads. I think, and I'm not trying to be negative on the season. I just think this could go bad. Like this season, you're sitting at a spot right now where you lose these. Let's say you they could go to Lubbock and they could get swept. That's not going to be good. I think you're going to start to see things kind of come unwound a little bit. Or they could go up. They could go to Lubbock and win the series or be competitive in the series, and who knows what happens. I don't know. I feel like you never want to put too much stock into one game or one series in baseball, but I feel like, man, he might lose the team if they can't figure out a way to win a couple this weekend. And there's all this stuff about, does Pierce have like a culture problem? I don't know. I feel like there's some evidence of that. Like the coaching, he just hasn't had a consistent coaching staff. He's run guys off for seemingly no reason. I've heard that players don't like him. And then, I don't know how much that's true. And I think it's fair to say that you don't have to like your coach for them to be a good coach. Like, I don't like looking back at my time playing football. I don't know that I ever really liked my coaches, but I had some damn good coaches. And as I got older, I grew to like my coaches. Like I would look back, I look back fondly on those memories, and now I understand like why they were so hard on all of us. But at the time, I did not like them. So I don't think it's like, I don't think you don't have to go to baseball every day smiling and shit and, I get to go get coached by Coach Pierce. You don't have to do that. But it is an interesting thought. And then you got a guy like Gavin Cash who comes to Texas a couple years ago, sits behind Ryan Melendez. There's no way on the planet, no way on earth that guy, was sour about that. I mean, the dude won the freaking Golden Spikes Award. I mean, Gavin Cash is a good ball player, but weren't at that point, maybe not ever will be, Golden Spikes worthy. Well, he leaves Texas and heads up to Tech, has a really good year last year. He's doing pretty well this year already. Like, what caused that? He was going to be the starter at first base. I don't know. Maybe he just felt like he needed a new start, or maybe he just didn't get along with Coach Pierce. Maybe they just didn't see eye to eye. I don't know. But to me, there's like a whole lot of those rumors going around And again, they're just rumors, but where there's smoke, there's fire in a lot of cases. So I just don't know. I just don't know what's going on with Texas baseball right now. It's hard to look at Coach Pierce's record and be upset about it. I mean, they've been to the College World Series 3 of the last 6 seasons, I think. One of those was a COVID year that they didn't make it. They almost made it again last year and made it 3 times in a row. Not a lot of coaches have made it to the College World Series 3 times in a row. And it would have been, the third time would have been with a almost completely different team than he made it with the 2 times before. So you look at his record and you just go, man, I mean, he's like, he gets the team he gets the team deep in postseason pretty damn consistently. But I don't know, man. There's something going on there. We'll have to see how all that plays out as we head, as we finish out this season. Can he turn it around? Can they get back on track? Can they make a decent run in the tournament? Or do the wheels just come off? And then what does it look like when those wheels come off, administratively? How does Chris Del Conte handle all that? I don't know. Texas Tech series this weekend, Friday, 6:30 p.m., Saturday, 2 p.m., Sunday, 2 p.m. All these games are on ESPN Plus and the Longhorn Radio Network. And we just said it a minute ago, man. Like always, Tim Tadlock has teams that can hit the freaking baseball, and they can hit it this year. The team average of 368. This team scored something like 62 runs in a 3-game series against Texas Southern. And I know Texas Southern is not a good baseball team. There's probably some high school baseball teams that could probably beat Texas Southern. But 62 runs? I mean, that shit is that's ridiculous. This offense has only got 3 guys batting under 300. Got a kid named Damian Bravo. I don't even know who the hell that is. He leads the team with a 563 batting average. He's got 12 doubles and 23 RBI already this season. So obviously that guy can hit. Gavin Cash leads them with home runs with 4, which I'm surprised it's that low of a number. Not just because it's him, just, again, they play in such a small park. A pop fly goes out of that place most of the time. The wind is the crazy panhandle wind is right behind you almost every single time this time of year. Texas bats are going to have to show up this weekend. The wind's going to be out of the north on Friday and Saturday. The only saving grace, Friday and Saturday are not going to be fun days to be playing baseball. Tomorrow, the high is upper 40s maybe with 15 to 20 mile an hour winds. It's supposed to be cloudy. It's going to be cold. Tomorrow night is not going to be fun to be watching a baseball game. I will be watching a baseball game, but I won't be over at Rip Griffin. I will be at the high school field here at Lubbock Cooper watching those Pirates play in this First Trust Bank tournament, whatever it is. Saturday is going to be a little bit better. Highs in the upper 50s and sunshine. And then Sunday be really nice. Highs in the upper 60s with sun. The wind kind of lays down sometimes Saturday evening. We're going to try to get Hardball Harge on the show next week to get his thoughts on Texas baseball. We've had him on the show before to talk football. Really like him. Really like Hardball. Like interacting with him on Twitter. We're gonna reach out to him this weekend. See if we can't get him on the show next week. Talk a little Texas baseball. See, for those of you that don't know, Hardball Harge, well, a couple things. He's on the radio down in Austin, 1300 AM The Zone. He's got a show in the morning there. He does a lot of other stuff, sports related. He's called baseball. I saw him. I don't even remember which baseball game it was, but I saw that he was calling a ball game on the radio or on TV, something. He's an ex-baseball player, minor league player. So Hardball Harge knows him some baseball. We're going to try to get him on and talk about some baseball next week. So stay tuned. Be on the lookout for that. Talk a little Texas football, man. Speed kills, and Texas had a lot of it last season. The guys go out to the combine. Xavier Worthy, they're interviewing this guy, and he says, yeah, I want to run a 4.27. Oh, so do I, Xavier. I mean, I want to run a 4.27. I think a lot of guys want to go to the combine and run a 4.27, but the problem is a lot of guys ain't capable. And I'll be honest, I know Xavier Worthy was fast. I am freaking blown away by that dude's times at the combine. I mean, this shit is unreal. Not only did he say it and was like, they asked him, do you think you're the fastest player at the combine? He said, yeah, I'm the fastest player at the combine. And he backed that shit up. This dude ran a 4.22 40 and then backed that one up with a 4.25 40, smacking the NFL Combine's 40 record. Really, really impressive performance by Xavier Worthy at the combine. And then Adonai Mitchell, he busts off a 4.35, which that is smoking fast. I mean, that is fast. And that's a big dude running that fast. I think, officially he was like 6'2" and 7/16 or some crazy shit. I mean, like the lengths they go to like get these measurements exact at the combine are pretty interesting. But then, I mean, he's a big dude, too. I think he's 200 pounds, 205 pounds, something like that. 4.35, man. That is sick. Sick speed. T'Vondre Sweat, Byron Murphy, JT Sanders. I think all three of those guys did really well for themselves at the combine. JT Sanders caught everything. A lot of people think Byron Murphy, I mean, headed in like sort of the last half, maybe not the last half, maybe like the last third of college football season. And as we went into the conference championship time during the season and obviously the playoffs, a lot of people started popping Byron Murphy up ahead of T'Vondre Sweat on their draft things, their fantasy drafts, or what do they call that shits? I don't know. The little draft projections is what I'm going to say. I don't think that's the word or the phrase. But he starts popping up there ahead of T'Vondre Sweat, and I have comped Byron Murphy to Arnold Darnold, whatever that dude is that plays for the Rams. I always fucking forget his name and mess it up. I swear I know what I'm talking about. I swear I know who I'm talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I know who I'm talking about. That's who I feel this dude looks like. He's not huge. I think he was 6'1" and 18-30 seconds tall and 295 pounds or something, but he is solid at that size and quick, can move. Speaking of moving, T'Vondre Sweat, 5.05 in the 40-yard dash at 366 pounds. Biggest dude at the combine and one of the fastest of the big dudes at the combine. Man, that is moving. A lot of people think, you got to be in the fours to be moving. And that just ain't true. 5.5 is 5.05. That is moving, especially at that size. So, I think the question is, can Worthy or Mitchell sneak into the first round? I mean, I think a lot of people have already had Murphy in the first round. T'Vondre Sweat in the first round, out of the first round, back in the first round, out of the first round. I don't really know what people are going to do with him. I think he could end up in the first round. And then can one of Worthy and Mitchell sneak in? With those times, man, that's freaking elite. Go back and look at wide receiver times, for the last 10 years in the combine. And those two dudes are going to be up there in that list as the fastest times. One of them is going to be at the top of that list. So I think you can take the whole, can Texas develop talent thing or Texas can't develop talent argument and just get rid of that, at least for now. Arch Manning opts out of EA Sports NCAA 2025 and the internet explodes. Who gives a shit? Who cares? I don't understand why this is such a big deal. Man, Arch Manning could like go to In-N-Out Burger and not get it animal style, and like everybody would lose their fucking minds and say he's transferring. He could go to like, the Hangout Mexican Tex-Mex joint and order chicken tenders, and everybody on the internet would lose their minds. And then there would be transfer rumors. I mean, it doesn't matter what the kid does. Everybody's just all over him about everything. I don't get it. I could care less if the kid wants to be in 2025. It's $600. $600 is what they're going to pay all these guys that opt into NCAA 2025. I don't think I would do that either. Spring ball starts in less than 2 weeks. We're excited about that. What are we looking for? What are we really looking for this spring? Well, here's what I'm looking for. I think a lot of Texas fans should be looking for this as well. Who steps up as depth behind Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton at that defensive line position? That'll be the second year in a row that Texas has lost their two starting defensive tackles to the draft. So can Collins and Broughton come in with another year of development and be those guys, be as good as all those guys? And then who steps up behind them to kind of solidify themselves as the next in line to be that next tandem that comes in and tries to be better than the next guys? I don't know. There's a lot of talent there. We'll just have to see. Who ends up replacing Christian Jones at right tackle? I like the bigs. Texas is going to be bringing back 4 of their 5 starters this last season. That's huge. That's huge. So who do they get to sort of tie down that right tackle position? Who nails down the middle linebacker position that Jalen Ford's held down for the last 2 seasons and played really, really well? There's some guys. There's some dudes. There's some names. Blackshear, whatever, from Alabama. He graded out really, really well this season at Alabama. David Benda played a lot of middle linebacker last season. Could Anthony Hill Jr. move over and play middle linebacker? He's got the size. We know he's got the speed and athleticism to do all kinds of crazy shit. Could one of the young guys we haven't even heard much about, Leona Lafau, is that a guy that could come in and hold it down? I don't know. That's why we're asking. Lots of secondary positions up for grabs. Who grabs them? A lot of guys transferred out. A couple guys, out of eligibility. Who grabs them? And then I think you talk about speed. Who steps up offensively to replace all that speed? I think we know the answers there. I don't know if there's a 4-2-2 guy on the roster right now, but there are some fast dudes. They're going to be wearing wide receiver numbers for Texas this fall. I'm not worried about the speed. But who does it though? Who steps up? He brought in some dudes through the portal, and there's some dudes that were sitting on the kind of just waiting their turn. I think if you look at any of the position groups on this Texas team headed into 2024, like the biggest battles to me, that wide receiver group, that's going to be interesting to see how all that shapes up. Check us out next week. Talk about those Hardwood Horns, man. Can they beat Oklahoma this weekend? Can they nail down the 8 seed? I don't even know when the Big 12 tournament starts. I imagine it's next week sometime. Texas baseball. We'll try to get Harge on here. Talk some Texas baseball. Please, baseball gods, let us win 2 games this weekend at least. And then we'll gear up for spring football. And it'll be, before you know it, we'll be doing a show every single day except Wednesday again. And I'm excited for that, man. It seems like it's been too long. Check out the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. Twitter, TikTok, YouTube at Horn Takes. Follow us, subscribe. Won't cost you guys a thing. We appreciate it. Email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. I love them all. You guys have a good weekend. Get hooked, baby.